Throughout our living room conversations, we identified multiple strategies for social and economic justice regarding ageism and racism. At the individual level, one important strategy we identified that can be applied to both ageism and racism is allyship. As we learned throughout our coursework, allyship is a lifelong process that involves accountability, advocacy, and constant learning. As allies united against ageism and racism, we can fight for social and economic justice by holding one another accountable and owning up to the individual parts we play in perpetuating ageism and racism. Additionally, as we continue to learn, we can share our knowledge with one another so that we can all be more informed. In regards to ageism, another important strategy that we identified is changing the way we think of and speak to the elderly. In learning about microaggressions in Chapter 4 of Readings for Diversity and Social Justice, the term elder speak stuck out to us because it's a concept that we had never heard of before. The authors discuss how belittling it is to infantilize the elderly by calling them pet names such as sweetie and dear. They further go on to define elder speak as a very harmful and humiliating form of microaggression that can result in a downward spiral for older persons, low self-esteem, withdrawal, and depression, page 24. As most of us currently work in the healthcare field or have in the past, we realize that we all have either used elder speak or witnessed someone else speaking to an elderly person as if he or she were a child. In order to combat ageism such as this, we have all taken steps to change the way we view and address the elderly.
Combating ageism and racism at the institutional level can be achieved by becoming involved in education. Not only are the faces of oppression more recognized once brought to light, but they can be also demolished using the education system as a tool. Racism specifically can be combated by voting in school board members who come from diverse backgrounds, taking your children to diverse schools so they're not surrounded by their same race, and making the inclusion of diversity in the education curriculum as a priority. By becoming more aware of cultures that are different from our own and emphasizing their importance within society, we'll be able to build a platform of respect instead of discrimination. Also, when discussing ageism, it is often viewed as the elderly being discriminated against. In our group, we discussed how ageism affects youth as well, since the younger generation tends to be stereotyped as less knowledgeable or lazy. In education, we can combat ageism by giving the younger generation a voice. Voting a member onto the school board fresh out of college or even in college is one way to enact a fresh take on the education system in this present time. I think it's necessary to hear the younger generation out on what they consider relevant topics in their lives, what assists them in their growth, and how exactly the educational road to success should look for them. Implementing these new ideas will create waves of change against ageism while also building valued roles for youth and society.
Also, when thinking of ageism and racism on an institutional level, we decided that combating ageism and racism in healthcare and voting for prison reform will qualify for effective strategies. When it comes to ageism in healthcare, most Americans are not even aware of the dangers it may cause, let alone that they even exist. Ageism in healthcare is one of the most overlooked factors related to ageism, but it is a difficult issue that exists throughout the healthcare field. Additionally, insurance companies and hospitals see anyone over the age of 65 as being at the end of their life and use this as a justification for stereotyping and discriminating against them. When it comes to racism in healthcare, Blacks and other minorities are affected by discrimination in the form of substandard care and carelessness and even refusal of services because of insurance status. We can combat racism in healthcare by calling attention to and speaking out against the institutional racism occurring in the healthcare setting. We can also combat racism in healthcare by reporting any healthcare workers who is witnessed being racist, discriminatory, and abusive against people of color. We can also combat ageism in healthcare in the same manner so that by reporting acts of discriminations to human resources and the patient satisfaction departments, we can begin to enact positive change in the healthcare setting. Additionally, when it comes to prison reform, we discussed that Blacks and other minority groups are more likely to be charged, convicted, and imprisoned for the same crimes that whites are allowed to get away with. People of color are also more likely to be sentenced to harsh punishments for a longer time than whites. By voting for diverse candidates that support equality and prison reform, we can begin to combat racism in law enforcement in the form of less convictions for nonviolent crimes, shorter prison sentences, and a better prison conditions for people of color.
It is very important to promote social justice on the individual and community levels, but also for society as a whole. There are several strategies that our group identified to promote social justice and lasting change to prevent oppression from both ageism and racism. Some of the examples are intersectional and can cover both forms of oppression. When it comes to ageism, we've discussed different strategies that include supporting policies that aid the elderly population and speaking up when policies are put into place that hurt the aging population, such as budget cuts or policy changes regarding Medicare or retirement. When it comes to racism, one strategy for social justice is to contact representatives or senators with concerns on discriminatory policies and discrimination in general. By telling them your thoughts on how you believe a policy or program should or should not exist, helps policymakers to know what the people's needs and wants are. It may take several points of contact to truly be heard. However, this is very beneficial to be persistent. Voting for candidates of color or supporting candidates who support ending racism and discrimination is another way to promote social justice.
When thinking of ageism and racism on a societal and cultural level, it was initially difficult to pinpoint specific areas or strategies that could bring forth justice. With that being said, we decided that volunteering, increasing community involvement, and destigmatizing cultural dress would be effective strategies. When you think of one's lived experiences with an ism or multiple isms, they are typically characterized by profiling the individual based off of their clothing and appearance, age, and race, especially when it comes to issues of police brutality and the targeting of specific races and age groups. By destigmatizing the concept of cultural dress and accepting that many young individuals will walk down dark streets in a hoodie with the hood up, we can then move forward to worrying about more important issues and concerns rather than policing people's wardrobe. Through volunteering and increasing your community involvement, you can also combat the negative effects of ageism and racism. Individuals could make signs to educate their community, educate themselves and speak out about the rights and values of all ages and races, or petition for legislative change, either in your community or in your larger government, for the promotion of equality. Some community involvement activities that promote inclusion range from gardening or helping at the local senior centers, participating in school programs and advocating for change and inclusion, holding or attending multiracial conferences or seminars, and attending or holding cultural, age, or race awareness events. In conclusion, there's a wide variety of opportunities for social and cultural change and promotion of age and race inclusion and equality.
At the beginning of the semester, I was really apprehensive about participating in our weekly LRCs because I'm not a very outgoing person. I also have not had great experiences with group work in the past. So I was really worried about whether or not we would all be able to coordinate our schedules and work well together. Thankfully, though, all of my worries were gone after our first LRC, and it was immediately apparent that we would all get along and work well as a group. Even though I live in Tennessee and met my group mates in person, I feel as though we have all been able to connect and bond through our LRC meetings. It has been a great experience to share our personal stories and thoughts with one another in a safe, open environment. I've learned new perspectives and valuable information from each member of my group. We have helped one another understand and apply the concepts we learned in each module, and our LRC discussions have helped us prepare for when we will have to work with others in the social work field.
Like Rose, with our LRCs, my first impression was that it was going to be a hassle to coordinate everyone's schedules and engage in tough conversations with complete strangers. Now I can say that I've gained some friends. Learning about people's experiences allows you to do your job better as a social worker because you can realize that there are multiple perspectives to view every situation. It also has allowed me to be more confident in addressing the hard issues without being afraid of offending someone or saying the wrong thing. Before, I used to keep my comments to myself most times because I was intimidated by these kind of conversations. I also learned to be more aware of my emotions and facial expressions. I'm entirely expressive, and my reactions to things I find astonishing are transparent. In a real world, that can be taken a multitude of ways, so I have to be careful doing such. Overall, this activity was extremely useful, and I'm grateful I got the opportunity to not only share my life experiences to help others, but also learn about different perspectives of the same topic to use later on in my social work career.
Throughout the living room conversations, I have gotten more comfortable with speaking on tough issues and how to respect others' opinions on those issues. While engaging in those conversations, I have learned more about myself than before. I never thought that I could be so understanding and patient when it comes to others' views other than my own. I see a change in me even when I'm out at the grocery store and I encounter an act of racism. I have these weekly conversations to thank for that, because before I would have zero tolerance for such actions. However, now that I see that I can't let others' opinion get to me or in the way of my happiness, I believe that I can keep it moving forward. I have also met a great group of young ladies who are very inspiring and helpful throughout the whole process of these living room conversations.
The LRC discussions helped me to become more comfortable in speaking on tough issues. It's also helped me to understand others' perspectives on these issues. My groupmate stories have helped me to better understand what others go through in terms of discrimination and oppression. I feel much more comfortable now in speaking about addressing the issues that I see in promoting change that will have a positive outcome for those who are part of these oppressed groups, of any oppressed groups. I found that interesting to know how each of my group mates had experienced each form of depression in their lives. Most of us have seen many forms of different oppression since we were young. I feel much more confident in the idea now that I can make a change both in my life and others by using the experience I've gained from these discussions. I take this experience with me wherever I go. I mostly see the benefit from it when I'm at work, since I work with a diverse group of patients. I am much more aware of what I say and do, as well as what the patients and my coworkers do. I have already begun promoting social justice and change on the individual level by speaking up when I see discrimination and forms of oppression. Not all people have been receptive, but I'm hopeful in my persistence I will be able to make a long-lasting change.
At first, I was worried about these sessions and how successful a group of diverse individuals could converse on specific topics that are sensitive. However, after meeting the group and becoming comfortable with them, I found myself learning so much from all of them. I learned about the difficulties that each of them experienced while growing up due to discrimination, oppression, and other effects of the isms. I also found myself becoming much more comfortable speaking about social issues and the topics that we covered throughout the semester. Through the confidence and education that I've gained from my interactions with my group mates, as well as from the assigned readings this semester, I find myself much more open and prepared to advocate for change. Due to working in an alternative school program with a variety of diverse students and coworkers, I've found myself also becoming much more aware of the statements that I say and how they may come across as insensitive, even if it's unintentional. I am now constantly watching what I say and listening to what others say in order to combat the effects of the isms as well as any other social justice issues. I also try to diffuse the situations and bring awareness to the isms that people may inadvertently be embodying. Social justice has always been important to me, which is why I selected the human service field. However, with the education and confidence that I have gained from this class, as well as through my job, I find myself much more aware and open to change and increased justice and awareness.
So this concludes our presentation on ageism and racism, And we hope that this helps to give you guys a better understanding of these isms and how to create social justice by using the strategies that we have outlined. We appreciate your attention and thanks for watching.